This is my first intro ever.
You got this. We can do this.
What's this show called again?
Oh my God. Welcome back to another episode of Two Parents and a Podcast.
Oh, Joel's did it, so I don't have to. All right, here we go. Welcome back to Two Parents and a Podcast. We are here with Dr. Ari Brown, author of the 411 series, esteemed pediatrician and recurring guest. Today, we're here to talk about everything sleep. How's it going?
Great. And today would be One Parent and a Podcast.
Today is One Parent and Podcast. Yes, the mini sub-series of life. Today was not a great day of sleep for me. We had a 5 a.m. wake up. And I think that getting into how often kids' sleep schedules change will be something of interest. But before we get into that, I would love to, off the top, hear from you on how important is sleep for kids.
Sleep's important for everybody. So I think that's the first point. And when we talk about sleep for kids, I also like to talk about the value of parents getting good sleep as well. So just from the top, sleep is really important because it's restorative. It's recharging all the batteries. It's helping your brain do its job of kind of sorting through the day and organizing and collecting memories. It's important for your immune system to recharge. It's important to build cells and tissues in your muscle. And for kids, what's critically important is that they actually secrete growth hormone while they're sleeping. So kids are growing while they're asleep.
And it is no surprise. Obviously, the attention that sleep has been getting on longevity for adults has grown immensely in popularity over recent years, and so that applying to children as well is quite intuitive. I think the natural question from there is, okay, well, when should a child start sleeping through the night? And if sleep is so important, which obviously we all believe it is, what do you do as a parent if your kid isn't sleeping?
Okay, that's a multi-part question and all really good questions, I'll say. So let's start with how much sleep newborns have and why. So newborns are going to sleep like 14 to 18 hours a day, and that's because they're spending most of their energy to grow. And so they need to sleep because they're conserving their energy because the work that is being done is to grow. And then over time, a 1-year-old is sleeping like 11 to 13 hours a day. So it goes down significantly, but they still need quite a bit of sleep. Again, growth is really important, and that's what they're doing. The holy grail of parenting, though, is when is that child bringing all of their sleep cycles together to sleep through the night and be awake for most of the day and sleep through the night. And so while I would love for it to be true that you can get 12 hours of sleep by 12 weeks, that's a lie. That is a lie, parents. I'm sorry to tell you this. The reality is that most babies mature neurologically and are able to kind of bring sleep cycles together closer to 17 weeks of life. And sleeping through the night, by definition, is getting 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. So that's about a 4-month-old who's getting at least 6 hours on the front end of the night. And that's assuming the baby is growing and thriving and is born full term.
And so what do you do if your kid is 4 months old and they're only getting 2-3 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night?
Right. So if your baby, again, is full term and is growing properly, a lot of the magic is the behavioral piece, is getting your baby to learn how to self-regulate and calm down to fall asleep and fall back asleep at the end of every sleep cycle. A lot of people don't realize kids and adults, we all have sleep cycles. Babies, newborns, they're about 60 minutes. As they mature, it's about 90 minutes. So we have like 90-minute sleep cycles. And so at the beginning of our sleep cycle, we're in light sleep. We go into a deeper sleep. Then we come into lighter sleep. We have a partial awakening, recheck our environment, go into our next sleep cycle. And so for babies, part of that secret sauce is when they fall asleep on the front end of the night, whatever that routine is, that's kind of baked into their expectation when they stir after every sleep cycle. And so that's the key, is if you have an older baby who's not starting to have those longer stretches and they're growing, it's not a matter of nutrition. It's really creating a healthy sleep routine so your baby knows what to expect and knows how to fall back asleep.
Okay, I think you actually may have lost me a little bit there. So
Okay.
intuitively, like when someone says sleep routine, you think, all right, what do you do before you go to bed? And I think when I look at, we were in a situation where we got very lucky with Tate's sleeping situation, but we understand how much of that is luck. But when I talk to my friends, I think the common thing that we hear from them is it's not about their babies falling to sleep. It's what happens at 1, 2, or 3 in the morning. And so how does a sleep routine tie into the 1 a.m. wake up and the 4 a.m. wake up?
Okay. We're gonna say it more clearly. The first 3 months of life, your baby is born very immature neurologically.
Totally.
You do what you got to do. And I know that you guys use a SNOO, and I think the SNOO is awesome. We can talk about the SNOO because I think babies do sleep a little bit longer. But those first 3 months of life, you do what you got to do to get them to fall asleep. So what does every parent do? They feed them, and then if they don't fall asleep when they're feeding, they put them up on their shoulder and they're rocking them till they fall asleep and they're dead weight on the shoulder. And then you peel them off and you stick them into their sleep space and you hope that they stay asleep.
Yep.
Right? Every parent does that, and it works. It stops working when your baby matures. And so this is the biggest mistake that parents make. They treat their 4-month-old like a newborn. They don't grow with their child. And so you're not dealing with a newborn anymore. And so that 4-month age is really when your baby starts to have habits, just like we all do. We become creatures of habit. And so they start to associate things with falling asleep. Do they need to be sucking to fall asleep? Do they need to be eating to fall asleep? Do they need to be dead weight on your shoulder? And so that's the piece that parents need to transition. And so your question is really important. Why is my baby waking up at 2 a.m.? It's what you're doing at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. That's why your baby's waking up at 2 a.m. because you baked in an expectation that they think that they need to be sucking or rocking or whatever shenanigans you're doing. They wake up and they recheck their environment and it's different. And so they think, even though they don't need that anymore, they think that they need whatever it is at the beginning of the night to go into their next sleep cycle.
Okay, and so I think I'm with you from 10,000 feet.
Okay.
But to get a little more bottoms up with it, like what are those things that you see parents doing that they specifically should not be doing? And then on the other end, what are the things parents are doing right that most parents should be doing as it pertains to developing those healthy sleep habits?
Yeah, great question. So the way to create a healthy sleep routine for your baby is as you're leaving that newborn phase, so you're getting out of that 0 to 3 month phase, the sleep routine for both naps and bedtime, you want to be really consistent about this, is you feed them, that's fine. But then if they fall asleep, change their diaper, do something where they wake up because we don't want them falling asleep feeding. Break it up, separate feeding from falling asleep, have a nice, easy, quick routine. Maybe you're going to read them a book and sing them a song and do some cuddle time, but you don't want them asleep feeding. We don't want them asleep on your shoulder. We want them relaxed and awake when you put them into their sleep space. And so that's the key. And it takes practice, and it may not work the first time, and your baby may not figure it out. But consistency is what bakes in that routine, and your baby learns to expect, this is what I do when I wind down. And it actually triggers the brain to relax because they know what's coming, and they know that it's time to go to sleep. And so you put them down awake without doing all of those other things. And if you keep doing that, they do fall asleep without needing all of those things. And then when they stir, after every sleep cycle, they know how to fall back asleep because they don't need all of those kind of crutches. They're called sleep crutches.
Yeah. And I guess the delineation between a sleep crutch, a la falling asleep with a ball in your mouth, and activities that calm you, a la reading a book, are just it's as simple as what's putting you to actual sleep versus not.
It's helping your brain relax without thinking you need to be sucking.
Okay.
Which is also the pacifier question, but that's another crutch. So as you're kind of creating a healthy sleep routine, I would try to not have anything that involves you as an enabler to get the child to go back to sleep.
Yes, which it intuitively makes sense, but then the specifics of it, well, like reading a book involves you, cuddling them involves you.
True.
And so that's where I'm just kind of like, okay, I actually completely understand what you're saying in theory, and it makes so much sense. Like the way you put them to get to bed, make sure that when they wake up at 3 a.m., they can fall back asleep that way.
But Dr. Brown is saying they shouldn't be falling asleep while you read the book. They shouldn't be falling asleep while you're cuddling with them. They should still be awake and calming down. And then when they fall actually to sleep, they are alone in the crib, right?
Totally.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Yes.
And I guess what I'm not then explaining properly is, so when they're waking up, do they not need to be recalmed? Because that's what I read.
At 3 a.m.
Right.
3 a.m.
Because, right. So this is all about self-regulation. And babies, again, full-term babies, this has to be a full-term baby, but 4-month-olds, a good percentage of them can self-regulate. 5-month-olds, most of them can. 6-month-olds, they all can.
Okay.
So there's a window of time, and it's a transition, and people are always like, well, what does that transition look like? Well, it's practice. That's all it is you keep practicing. But 4 to 6-month-olds, at some point, if you give your child the opportunity, they know how to fall asleep independently because they're capable of self-regulation. But if you don't ever give them that opportunity, you are the Uber ride to the land of Nod.
Yeah.
And they will expect the Uber. They're not going to go get the rent-a-car and drive themselves because the Uber's there.
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
What I do just want to do is like, I want to fight for my 3 or 4 friends right now that I think right now would say like, we had a really healthy bedtime routine. And so what at that point, if you're doing these things, if your bedtime routine is every day you do a 6 o'clock bath into a warm bottle, into reading a book, into a cuddle, and then you put them asleep you put them into the crib while they're awake and they fall asleep. Like if you are dialed in on that routine and they're still not sleeping through the night, what do you do?
Okay. All right. We're going to shift to a little bit of a different question here, not just this is the sleep routine, because the sleep routine is really important and consistent. We got that piece. We're going to be consistent. We're not going to use crutches. The next piece is a 4-month-old should be able to sleep 6 hours on the front end of the night, but then they may be up every 2 or 3 hours. So you may have a night feeding in there still. A 5-month-old should be able to go 9 hours. A 6-month-old should be able to go 10 or 12 hours on the front end of the night. So that said, if they wake up in the middle of the night and it's shorter time period than those, first thing is don't feed them, because a lot of parents go backwards and they're like, oh, well, they're up after 2 hours. They must be hungry. I need to feed them. if your child eats the cumulative amount of calories during daylight hours, you don't want to go backwards. They don't wake up because they're hungry.
Yeah.
And if you do that, they become a trained night feeder, and then they eat their calories at night, and then they're not hungry. So do not feed them if it's been it's been a shorter duration. That's not on your troubleshooting to-do list. If they really seem distressed, yes, you go in. A lot of times babies will have partial awakenings between each sleep cycle. And during a partial awakening, they may cry out or they may stir, and they're not actually awake. And so that's a key point, is a partial awakening, I would leave them alone. Because if you go in, then it's a full awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's, you got to do something about it. So first thing is pause and see if they go back to sleep. That's the first thing. Number 2, don't feed them. If you do need to go in, do as little as humanly possible, and don't go backwards and, wait till they're full. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you have to put them onto your shoulder and fall asleep, so be it. But you create the habits. And so if you create a new normal, you bake in a new expectation, and you don't want to go backwards if at all possible. So I would say do as little as humanly possible. If you have to go in, don't feed them. And the first thing is leave them alone and see if they'll go back to sleep, because it may just be a partial awakening.
Yeah, partial awakenings have been surprisingly obvious to me. Mm-hmm. Today at 5 a.m. was just a great example of that was not a partial awakening. She just was up a couple hours earlier than normal, and it was very clear. Okay. Do we think we can move on from this, or?
Yes, but were you asking at what point do you get external help or go to a pediatrician?
I guess. I have a specific friend in mind right now who I feel like I'm just kind of fighting for, who would just argue that they've done all this and that they would only go in when they are distressed, and they dealt with 6, 9+ months of wake ups every 3 hours. But there just does become a point where I think, I guess, Jules, to what you're saying, in the mass amount of situations, hopefully this does work. But yes, when it doesn't, at what point do you get help?
Okay,
So
this is a great question, and I'm gonna reframe it a little bit. A lot of parents struggle with unrealistic expectations of what their baby should be able to do, and I will say every baby is different. Every situation is unique. So this is for most babies. I would say most babies are capable of doing this. And a lot of it boils down to just being really consistent and letting your baby learn. However, if you're really struggling, the first place is to talk to your pediatrician about it. There are so many sleep coaches, consultants, people out there who want to take your money and help you with these things. And I wouldn't say that would be where I would go for help, although I know parents are really desperate. And I get that. But I would say first thing is, if you're really struggling, talk to your pediatrician. But most of the time, if you're consistent and your baby is used to a routine, eventually they fall into regular sleep routines as long as you follow through with your game plan.
Okay. Makes sense. So 6 months in, you've put a ton of emphasis on routine and it's not happening, then you really bring it to your pediatrician as a top priority to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, and you want to check in because you want to make sure there's not something else going on, because some babies are awake because they're not growing appropriately. And so I've had families where the baby is up at night because mom's milk supply dropped and the baby's not eating enough. And so we bring the baby in and I see the baby probably needs that night feeding because they're not gaining weight. So there are medical reasons, and that's why I do think it's important to check in with a pediatrician.
Okay. And that is I said 6 months before, but is that at the 6 month mark or sometime between 3 to 6?
I don't think
Whatever
your baby
feels
has a
right.
problem if they're 3 months old and they're not sleeping through the night. See, this is the thing that I want parents to, it's kind of a reality check, and it
Yeah.
sucks as a new parent, but you're up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you're about to face this. But you're up a lot because your baby needs to eat often. And they also don't have that neurologic maturation to be able to settle and fall back asleep.
Let's be honest, if a routine takes longer than 5 minutes, it's not happening. And moms, you will understand that because a lot of times you don't even have the hands to do it. That's why Merit Beauty believes that great makeup should be effortless. Their clean, thoughtfully curated essentials can help you get a fresh, polished look in minutes, you guys. Merit is a minimalist beauty brand that makes elevated makeup and skincare designed to help you look put together in minutes. Every mom's dream. Merit's bestsellers are proof that less really is more. The Flush Balm gives you that natural, healthy glow without overdoing it. That's why one was sold every 30 seconds in 2024 because that's how good it is. Then there's the Minimalist, which works double duty as both the foundation and concealer so you can get quick coverage without layering on a bunch of products. Right now, you guys, Merit Beauty is offering our listeners their signature makeup bag with your first order at meritbeauty.com. That's MERIT beauty.com to get your free signature makeup bag with your first order. meritbeauty.com.
So I think this is a good transition into sleep regressions because I feel like coming into parenting, we heard all about the 4-month sleep regression, and it's something that is consistently on parents' radars and being talked about in different facets of life. And so what should parents expect when it comes to sleep regressions? What is common versus what is not?
The first thing I want to say about sleep regressions is it's not a regression, it's a progression. It's a progression because you don't have a newborn anymore, and that 4-month-old has now learned your tricks and has figured out that this is what they think they need to fall asleep. So sleep associations become really important at 4 months. So if you were lucky enough to have a baby who was sleeping through the night under 4 months, and then suddenly you start seeing them every hour and a half again, it's because of what you need to do at the front end of the night and nap time and creating a routine where they're not falling asleep, eating, rocking, they're falling asleep when they're in their sleep space on their own. So it does happen. It happens because they have a sleep association that is requiring external help. So. And
how common are sleep progressions or regressions?
Yeah.
Like when you're 2, 3, 4 years old.
Okay. Yeah. And that's different. Let's talk about that. So I would say setbacks happen. So even in a perfectly good sleep routine, you've got great sleep routine, like you have a great sleep routine with Tate. But if she gets sick, or if you guys travel, or, babies are teething, she probably will have 2-year molars coming in at some point. Like that can set off a perfectly good sleep routine. And then, of course, you're going to change your game plan and you're going to do something different. But then that becomes the new normal. So that's when you have a regression. It's like, I had this kid who was a great sleeper, who had a great routine. Now we need to go back in every hour and a half and give her some water or something. And that's because you've baked in a new routine. So you just need to reset and go back to the old routine. Kids are really resilient and really adaptable. And I think parents maybe don't give them as much credit. They are capable of change, but you have to reset, and then you have to follow through with that reset, even if there's a protest.
Should we talk about travel and time zones? Is there anything that jumps out to you on that?
So do you want to talk about melatonin? Because I think if you're traveling to a really different time zone, that's the one time I would recommend melatonin.
Okay. Yeah, I think to set the stage here, I've been very surprised at how much we get rocked off our schedule on even very simple trips to the West Coast. And the 2 hours there and the 2 hours back always lead to a couple days of recovery. And so when you are traveling and there's even more of a time zone, I can only imagine the challenges that brings. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear how you would encourage parents to navigate sleep when traveling and adjusting time zones, and how melatonin fits into that.
I think if you're traveling in a 2-hour time zone difference, I think some of the sleep disruption is probably the travel itself, because you're doing different things, She's sleeping in a different place. So you have to readjust when you come back to this is our normal and we're going back to our normal. So that's some of it. But if you're traveling to a significant, you're going to Australia and you are really changing your time zones, that's when melatonin might be helpful, because all melatonin does is it changes your mind to think that it is evening time and it's time to go to sleep. That's all the melatonin does. So if you're changing where you're going to be going to a daytime time zone and you want to get them adjusted, then it makes sense to do that. There are other certain situations, kids with neurodiversity sometimes, need melatonin, whatever. But for your average child, I would not recommend melatonin to help them fall asleep in routine situations.
And why wouldn't you recommend the use of melatonin on a consistent basis with toddlers and children?
So some of it is melatonin's not regulated. And so you don't exactly know what you're getting. I'd be very cautious if you were looking for a melatonin supplement. I'd probably go someplace that sells it and backs their, we have a pharmacy here in town that really is very supportive of supplements, but very knowledgeable in supplements. And so it's their reputation and the products that they're selling. So, but I would not go buy any melatonin supplement online because you don't know what is in it. Sometimes it contains melatonin, sometimes it contains other ingredients. Sometimes it doesn't even contain much melatonin. So I worry about regulation with melatonin. But the deeper question is, are you creating something that your child needs to fall asleep, where in fact they probably are making plenty of melatonin on their own, and it's probably a behavioral sleep issue that you're dealing with and not one because your child is not making enough melatonin.
That makes a ton of sense. So you touched before on the ideal sleep schedule from baby through toddler, but what we didn't touch on was naps. Mm-hmm. And so what does the ideal napping timeline look like from baby through toddler?
Great question. So naps for 0 to 3 months are really all over the place, and they eat and they take a nap and then they wake up and poop and go back to sleep, whatever. There's not a whole lot of schedule or routine in a 0 to 3 month old with napping. 3 months is really when they do start to have more awake time and more structured, regular sleep patterns. And so a 3 month old is usually taking 3 or 4 naps a day, and they're usually pretty short, 30, 45 minutes. The afternoon nap is the one that will be longer. And as a child reaches like 4 months, they're usually down to 3 naps a day, 2 naps that are short, afternoon nap that's longer. 6 month old is down to 2 naps a day, short morning nap, 30, 45 minutes. And then that afternoon nap really is a restorative nap. So it may be 1 to 3 hours. And they carry through 2 naps a day to at least a year. From 12 to 21 months, they'll drop a morning nap and they'll just have that afternoon nap. And that afternoon nap sticks around hopefully till they're 3 or 4. About 25% of 4-year-olds are still taking a nap.
Okay. It's amazing how quickly you forget what you went through. And so like I'm going back to Tate's nap schedule 3 months in, and like that 3 to 6 months, and I completely forgot how we did it. Obviously today I know that she's 1 nap a day, 12 to 1:30, and I remember the drop from 2 to 1. But it is amazing how as a parent, like you quickly do you forget these things? So it is an amazing refresher, especially now with baby number 2. So I kind of want to re-punch back in on something, and you touched on it, and maybe that's all there is to it. But the biggest mistake that you see parents make around sleep?
Biggest mistake is they don't grow with their baby. And so they figure out what works and then they stick with it. But it's going to stop working because you don't have the same child. Every day is a new day. So you are not dealing with the same child. So don't treat your 4-month-old like a newborn. Don't treat your 2-year-old like a 6-month-old. Like, these things won't work anymore. And so you have to grow with your baby. The other mistake that parents make is that they have unrealistic expectations. And that's just baked into crowdsourcing and what they hear from other people. And so they think, oh, well, I can do this. I can get my child to sleep through the night. What is the secret? And truly, it is the holy grail of parenting. I'm not going to lie. I mean, everybody wants their child to sleep, but I think you need to be realistic that babies are not going to sleep for very long stretches for a while. They sleep a lot, but they don't sleep for very long stretches for the first few months of life.
Mm-hmm. And then what you mentioned before is around a mistake you see parents make is they develop a crutch around the bedtime routine and how their child falls asleep, which then restricts how they soothe themselves in the middle of the night.
Exactly. So, and if you take it further than the baby period, I have a lot of families who have toddlers starting at 12 months of life, who are still giving their child a bottle to fall asleep. And some of it is the parent, and they love that, it's cozy and they love it. But they also think, oh, my child needs to eat to be able to fall asleep, which they don't. They definitely don't need the calories, and they don't need that sucking. They're toddlers. Like, grow with your child. You need to grow with your child. So again, every phase is different, and you need to change with your child.
Yeah, it's a consistent reminder of just how locked in we need to be as parents, because like in you sit there and you develop to something that's working, and you just want to keep it flowing through, but like that isn't how it goes. A personal question to what you just said on the calories. I have noticed that sometimes at night, Tate gets so focused on her activities that like she really just won't eat and will refuse food. And so the only time that I will now give her a bottle before bed is like when I'm with her most of the day, and it's clear to me that she's undereaten. And is using my judgment in that case a good call, or no, I have to trust her and her behavior towards food? I'd say I do this twice a month.
Okay. Well, twice a month is not a big deal. I mean, it's fine. If you feel like you need to do it, you need to do it. So I'm not going to say that's the wrong answer. But I would push back and say to trust yourself and to trust her. And if she's hungry, she would have eaten. And toddlers, and we've talked about this before, toddlers eat once every 3 days. They decide they're hungry once every 3 days, or one really good meal in a day, and they pick at the rest. And they manage to grow. And so if she was really hungry, she would eat. And so I'm not worried that she's not going to sleep at night because she didn't get her calories for the day. I know that she'll wake up the next morning and have a huge breakfast because she didn't eat the day before. That I know, but I would not be convinced that she's going to wake up. And I think that's the parent default, is they're afraid because, again, you want to sleep. Like, what's the best way to make sure I'm going to get good sleep and she's going to get good sleep? I'm going to give her something.
Yeah. The irony is I actually gave her a bottle last night, and she was up at 5. And I don't think in the past 2 weeks she's been up before 7. So... And I was like, well, maybe I'm giving her the bottle and it's making her pee a lot more. And so her diaper's uncomfortable. And so she can't fall back asleep at 5:30 in the morning.
Exactly. And that's the other reason, which I will point out, is do you ever want your kid to be toilet trained? Don't give them a bottle before they go to bed. That's the last thing you want to do. But you're not there yet. So, but you figured that out. Good job.
I think we are close on that note.
Okay, cool.
She tried to sit on the toilet this weekend. It didn't work.
That's awesome.
Yeah. She's very curious about what we're doing. So
starting something new isn't just hard, it's terrifying, you guys. So much work goes into the thing that you're not entirely sure will work out, and it can be hard to make that leap of faith. It also helps when you have a partner like Shopify on your side to help. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Skims to brands that are just getting started. What if people haven't heard about my brands? Shopify helps you find customers with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. And you might ask, what if I get stuck? Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. So it's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/2parents. Go to shopify.com/2parents. That's shopify.com/2parents.
It's funny. So many of these we have touched on, and so I don't want to get too repetitive.
I think one of the things we haven't touched on, and Dr. Ari, you keep saying like sleep environment, but you haven't said crib. Like I think the crib versus the co-sleeping versus all that stuff would be really interesting. Because you keep saying sleep environment.
Mm-hmm.
My interest in co-sleeping is I think that there's a lot both good and bad that we can learn from other countries as it pertains to lifestyle, health, and wellness. And co-sleeping is one of those things that is done in countries where we do aspire, or we respect and aspire a lot of their lifestyle decisions, a la the Nordics. And so it feels like co-sleeping here is something that is shamed and judged, and something that inherently like we didn't do. And I think that we were probably shamed, or we didn't do it because of fear of making a mistake, fear of being judged, fear of not being fully up to speed on it. And so, yes, would love to hear about the ideal sleep environment. And does that to you mean crib? Does that mean co-sleeping, or something in between?
I'm going to say something that is really important for all parents to hear. You can have a healthy, well-adjusted child no matter where they sleep. Okay? That's the reality. So if you want to have a family bed, and everyone wants to have a family bed, that's the key, is everyone has to be on board. But if you want to have a family bed, that's fine. It's not a problem. The issue in the US, and why as a pediatrician we recommend room sharing and not bed sharing for an infant 0 to 1, is that there is an increased risk of sudden unexplained infant death and sudden infant death syndrome. And the issues involve entrapment and suffocation. And there are people who are at higher risk, which are people who are under the influence of drugs, people who are under the influence of alcohol, people who are on certain medications that make them tired, babies that are born prematurely, babies that are born under 5 pounds. They are at higher risk. But one of the risks is being exhausted as a parent and accidentally rolling over on a kid, or having bed sheets and comforters or pillows that are risk factors for these deaths. And every new parent is exhausted. And so as a pediatrician, I'm going to say it's just not worth that risk for a 0 to 1 year old. And that's why those recommendations are there. So people push back and they're like, well, it doesn't promote breastfeeding. You can breastfeed successfully room sharing. You can have that baby right next to you, but in their own sleep space. And so that's the reason why the recommendations are there. Once you have a toddler, if you guys want to all share a bed, I don't care. Everyone can climb on board. But I do want to talk about the everyone needs to be on board with this, because what I frequently see in my practice when people say we have a family bed is the reality is the mom and the child or children are in one bed and the dad is in the guest bedroom or somewhere else. And that is just because they're exhausted and they want to sleep and they are not on board with that. So that's why I think you guys need to approach this as a family and make decisions together. But it's true. Other cultures have family beds. This is not something that is frowned upon in the U.S. I think it's a choice that people make, and it's just our lifestyles. But you can do whatever you want to do. Again, you can have a healthy, well-adjusted child.
When I hear that, and obviously removing the drugs and the intoxication, because that isn't applicable for us. Just the small chance of being overtired and creating a bad scenario on the back end of that is just enough that it's like, why? Like, and that's just how it all lands, personally for me.
The other comment I want to make about having a safe sleep space for an infant is a lot of families will default to having the baby sleeping on them, and they're in a recliner or they're on the couch. And on a certain level, that's even more dangerous than co-sleeping in a bed, because as much as you want to stay awake, the reality is at some point exhaustion kicks in and you have a risk of this baby falling off of you, off of the couch, or off of the recliner. So it's really important, especially in those early days where you can't seem to find a way to get your baby to fall asleep. Do it safely. If you're going to have the baby on you, use a baby Bjorn or an Ergo baby, for at least the baby is secure on you. So if you do doze off, they're not rolling and getting injured.
And so, continuing on the theme of safety, when is the right time and the safe time to transition from a crib to a bed? And I think what's top of mind for us is, like, Tate does when she wakes up, she does this thing. She does like the flop, where she puts her arms over the crib and calls for us to get her. And it feels like she's very close to being able to flip over. And so this is very top of mind for us right now.
Yes. This is such a popular question, is when's the right time to transition a child out of their crib? Sometimes kids figure out how to climb out, and if they've made, crib jumping an Olympic sport, it's clearly time to move your child out of a crib. Sometimes they get displaced by a baby behind them who needs the crib. I personally tell people, if your child is happy in their crib, which most kids are, they like it's kind of like a kid cave, If they are happy in there, they are not trying to get out, try to keep them in the crib as long as humanly possible. Like age 3, I would aim for, because it's a safe sleep space and they can't leave. So key. Now,
interesting.
Yes, as long as possible. And a lot of parents will transition earlier, unknown reasons why, if they're not being displaced and the kid isn't trying to climb out. I personally wouldn't. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. But the key point I want to make is that once you do transition them, I personally tell people to just transition to a twin mattress on the floor, not a toddler bed where they're elevated, because the safety rails are really not that helpful, and you don't want your child to get stuck or to roll out of bed. I'd rather they roll on a mattress a few inches onto the floor. And the other important point is, once they are free of the crib, that doesn't mean they get free reign of the house. So their room becomes their crib. It's a safe sleep space that they can't leave. So I'd put up a safety gate in the doorway, or you can put like a little monkey lock on it. But unless you trust your toddler to roam around your house in the middle of the night without you watching them, I would not allow them free reign.
Yeah, that's exactly our concern, is that while she, and to be clear, she hasn't shown the inclination to try and crib jump yet, but she leans over it, and when I watch how she climbs over other things, like, I kind of think she could do it if she wanted to. But that is exactly my concern, is that she also knows how to open her door. She's gotten decently good at navigating gates, and so, but she still doesn't understand, like, she can't obviously trust it in the house, and still doesn't understand stairs very well. So that's our big concern. Did we really hit the nail on the head on what an ideal bedtime routine is? I know we talked about the importance of it, but did we say this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do?
I feel like we did for young, like almost the younger than 6 months, but maybe at Tate's age, what the ideal bedtime routine looks like could be interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to hear that.
Sure. So toddlers are usually sleeping 11 to 13 hours a day. They usually have one nap in the afternoon. You want them to be awake maybe 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. And bedtime, I would say general rule would be 7 to 8 o'clock at night. If you know that bedtime is going to be 7 or 8 o'clock, then push back what you need to do to get to that point. Do not make this a long, extended routine. I like your 6-minute routine. That's awesome. It's short, it's sweet, it's consistent. You know, get into your pajamas, read books, sing songs, chill out, go to sleep. Make sure that you're brushing their teeth before they go to bed. And again, if you want to give them some water, that's fine. But if you've already brushed their teeth, they should not be having any type of milk before they go to bed. And then follow through. And I will tell you the typical toddler tactics is they'll ask for one more thing. So one more book, one more sip of water, one more hug. Every toddler does that. And they're just trying to drag it out. So be consistent. We're not going to do one more whatever. And keep it simple, keep it consistent. And say goodnight and have them fall asleep on their own.
Okay. Amazing. So one thing that you did not mention there, and unsurprisingly so, is screens. And so would love to talk about the impact that screens have on sleep.
Screens are not good for any of us. So I would highly recommend that the screens have a bedtime and the screens go to bed, maybe in the kitchen to recharge. But I would not involve screen time as a wind down tool because number one, it doesn't calm your brain. Number two, that blue light interferes with the melatonin being released. And as we all know as parents, when you take the screen away, it actually causes frustration and anger and not calming. So I would not involve screens at least 30 minutes before bed. And if we're talking a young toddler like Tate, hopefully screens are not really part of your daily routine anyway.
Yes, they are not, but still very topical.
Yes.
And what about how diet and daily activities impact sleep?
Yeah, so physical activity actually helps you produce melatonin, and it actually helps you get into deeper sleep. So highly recommend for kids and adults to be physically active on a regular basis because it actually helps you sleep better.
Very nice. So I guess to bring it all together here, why don't we kind of play a bit of a game, probably not a fun game, and we'll call it Common Sleep Issue versus Talk to Your Doctor. And we'll talk through different things that kids can experience and whether that is common or whether you think they should bring it to their pediatrician.
Sounds like a fun, nerdy pediatrician game. I'm in.
Love it. Loud snoring.
Talk to your doctor.
Wow. I did not expect that. Frequent nighttime awakenings.
If you can't solve the problem, talk to your doctor.
Excessive movement.
Depends. Might need to talk to your doctor.
Waking up tired after after an adequate night's sleep.
Oh, very important because there's sleep quantity and there's sleep quality. So just because your kid is sleeping 10 hours a night does not mean they're getting good sleep.
And so,
Yes, talk to your doctor.
okay. Difficulty focusing.
Talk to your doctor. And that's a really important point because a lot of kids who get evaluated for attention issues, we discover that they're not getting good sleep, which turns out to make you not very focused during the day.
Okay.
You've heard me say it, but I'll say it again. Skims is always changing the game with their intimates. I'm wearing their bra right now. Everything that Skims comes out with is truly the best, you guys. And I'm wearing a ton of it postpartum. People are always asking me, where are you getting your clothes postpartum? And the answer to that is Skims. They make the stretchiest underwear fabric. Then they created the cutest push-up bra, and now they've done it again with the new cotton fabric that has changed my life. You guys, the new cotton fabric It truly seems like it's too good to be true, but it's not because Skims did it. I think Skims must have read my mind because here's the thing. I recently decided to replace a bunch of my underwear and bras, and I wanted to invest in new cotton pieces, and boom, there it was in front of my eyes. They made it, and they made it really well. So you guys get in on the goods because there's nothing better than good bra and underwear, especially with summer coming up. Shop everyday cotton in all of my favorite bras and underwear at skims.com. After you place your order, be sure to let them know we sent you. Select podcast in the survey and be sure to select our show in the drop-down menu that follows.
Night terrors.
Talk to your doctor. Scary, most of the time benign.
And yeah, can we just talk a little bit about night terrors? How common are they? What are the drivers of them? I oddly, vividly remember that I've had 2 night terrors in my life. One was at a very young age, and one was when I was at camp in the infirmary. And like, I remember both of them.
Okay, let's talk about the
They were traumatizing.
I'm sorry that was so traumatic
They were
for you.
traumatizing.
But I also have something to share with you. If you remember them, they weren't a night terror. So let's talk about what the definition is of a night terror. So a night terror is a parasomnia. It's like sleep talking and sleepwalking. So there's no recall of it the next day. And it happens pretty exclusively to kids like 18 months to 3 years of age. So your summer camp experience was definitely not a night terror. Sorry.
Just a bad dream.
And
so
nightmares, yes. Night terrors, no. So the thing that's so kooky about night terrors is the kid will wake up like after their first or second sleep cycle. So it's usually every night, like an hour and a half or 3 hours into sleep, and it's like clockwork. And the kid wakes up, they're not really awake, but they stir and they're possessed. Like they've seen a ghost. And the parent goes in and the kid is like screaming and looking elsewhere, not making eye contact, not connected at all. And so it's super freaky as a parent to see that happen, but they're actually not awake. And if you wake them up, then they're like, what's going on? Like they don't process that was actually happening. And so scary to the parent and freaky to the kid if you actually wake them up. But the reason why that happens frequently is because the child is overtired. And so one solution is to have an earlier bedtime, and that often will break that. The other solution is to actually go in and like gently wake the child up like 30 minutes before that time that happens every night, and that breaks the sleep cycle, and then they go into their next sleep cycle. But I will point out that every once in a while it's because the kid has low iron levels, and so we do check ferritins on kids who have frequent night terrors to make sure that they don't need an iron supplement.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so that general list, funny enough, was put together by Jules.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
When you put it together, I almost went into ChatGPT and was like, I feel like she's just going to say these are all normal. So great list.
Thank you.
Great list. What other sleep issues that parents should not brush off beyond what we just talked about?
Well, what we talked about are the symptoms.
Yeah.
And what I think is important is to connect the dots to what those symptoms can mean. So somebody who is snoring loudly, a child who sounds like grandpa, that's not good. It's probably because their tonsils are huge. They may be so huge that they're actually kissing. And the adenoid, which is tissue behind the nose, can also be enlarged. And so the child is snoring because they're actually trying to get air through these gonzo-sized tonsils. And some kids will have sleep disordered breathing where they're constantly thrashing around, super restless at night because they're moving to breathe. And the kids who are actually snoring and pause, that's actually obstructive sleep apnea. And both of those end up being causes of poor quality of sleep because they never get into deep sleep. And hundreds of times a night, they're having these little partial awakenings to breathe. They also can have drops in their oxygen levels. So it's actually really important to get that checked out because, again, sleep is really important because so many things happen when your child is asleep. We want them to have good quality of sleep for health and behavioral reasons.
Super interesting.
What are some like sleep things that parents come to you with that are normal?
A lot of it is the behavioral stuff that we've talked about is my child can't fall asleep at night, and that's because they're protesting and they have FOMO and they don't want the party to end, or they're waking up in the middle of the night. They start coming into, if you don't restrict access and the crib is no longer in the picture, these kids keep coming, making a beeline into the parents' bedroom every night, often. So a lot of them are behavioral things and less medical situations that need to be addressed.
All right, super hot topic amongst all parents and our friends included is sleep training and cry it out. And so would love to hear what are the big issues you see with this methodology, and on the flip side, do you think it works?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think when people delve into any sleep space online, they see, CIO and cried out and I don't want to do this. And I don't think that people really understand that there's protesting and then there's cried out. And your kid is going to protest. There will be many battlefronts as a parent where your child is not going to like what you're saying because you're establishing a boundary and drawing a line. And you're making that line for them because you're trying to make healthy choices for them. And sleep sometimes ends up in that category because your child needs a good night's sleep. And guess what? You do too, because you're a better parent if you are well rested. So for everybody's sake, I think it's important to draw a line and say, this is our line. We're going to have bedtime at this hour, and we're going to structure it so that you're not overtired when I put you to bed, and you're going to be prepared for sleep, and you're not going to do the toddler, tactics to draw out bedtime any longer. And so, unfortunately, your child may protest, and you have to be willing to accept that if you draw that line. So I think that's the important message I want parents to hear is it's okay to draw a healthy boundary for something important like sleep. And if you draw that boundary and you're consistent about it, you can bypass a lot of the protests because your child will know they're still not going to get what they want, even if they protest about it. So that's the thing is if they see there's wiggle room, they're going to keep negotiating and they're going to keep protesting. If there is no wiggle room, this is what we're doing. We're doing this every night. We do this every day at nap time. You can bypass a lot of that. Now, cried out gets a bad rap because there are some sleep training methods, which honestly were from the 1980s. This is when it started. Sleep training methods where you would go in at increasing intervals and let your child cry and not do anything, just walk in and make sure they're okay and then leave the room. And then they cry louder and then you wait a longer period of time. I will say that was done in 1980 when we didn't have video monitors. And the point of going in at increasing intervals was to make sure your kid didn't get their leg caught in a crib rail. That was the point, really for the parent to know the child was okay, but not to actually comfort the child. We've evolved since then. And the important point that I want parents to hear about all of these sleep methods is that we all firmly believe that establishing the healthy routine is what allows you to not have to train your child. You're creating a healthy routine. You're not having to break bad habits. If you're breaking bad habits, there are going to be protests, and then you have to decide how you're going to deal with it.
At our house, we've all been obsessed with the same meal almost every day, and that's the thing. We are all obsessed with Goodles mac and cheese, you guys. It's the ultimate comfort food, but it's packed with protein, and I'm breastfeeding, so protein is the name of the game. And also, I can't have dairy anymore, and they have a dairy-free option. And Goodles just dropped a new flavor of microwavable cups called Twist My Parm. That's right, you guys. Microwavable cups. So if you've got a toddler who's like, I'm hungry right now, boom, you pop it in the microwave, you microwave it, and it is ready to serve. Every serving of Goodles mac and cheese has protein, fiber with prebiotics, and vitamins and minerals from real plant sources. Most Goodles products are low glycemic index, giving you steady energy instead of a carb crash. They're also Clean Label Purity Award certified, meaning Goodles has been tested for over 400 contaminants and meets the highest standard. There's truly something for everyone. So many amazing flavors, plus vegan and gluten-free options. Trust me, you need to upgrade your mac and cheese to Goodles. I know you'll love it, and I know your kids will too. Plus, find the new Twist My Parm cups online at Goodles.com. And you can pick from so many of their products online or at the stores nationwide at Target and Walmart, plus many other grocery stores and retailers.
I like to use a Band-Aid analogy for how you approach change. So some of us rip the Band-Aid off. Some of us peel the Band-Aid off slowly. Mm-hmm. Some people just wait for the Band-Aid to fall off in the shower. So you have to decide which type of Band-Aid person you are. Are you willing to rip the Band-Aid off? Well, you're going to have one really long night to get your child to adapt to a new routine. They will, but it's pretty unpleasant, but it's real brief. If you're more of the, I'm going to wait for the Band-Aid to fall off in the shower, you don't have any discomfort with that, other than the fact it's going to take a really long time to see change. So you as the parent are in charge of changing a disrupted sleep routine. If you have one of those, you're in charge of changing it. You can create change. Your child is very adaptable and very resilient, and I know that they can change. You have to be the one to be willing to change. How you change is up to you and which type of Band-Aid person you are.
Mm-hmm. And it really lands because so much of how we personally went through Tate's sleep schedule was off of feel, and I think our mindset coming into it was very different than the reality of what happened. And I think coming into it, both of us were like very, pro cry it out sleep training, and we very much felt, and we tried the 5-10-15 method, but I think we very much just felt like we can develop a routine with her and then can pretty clearly identify like what is, kind of natural, what was the word you used? Like fighting, resistance?
Protest.
Protest?
What's just like a subtle protest versus what's a real cry for help. And we wanted to avoid those, severe cry for helps, but we're very comfortable with subtle protesting, and got to a place that worked for us. So
in like the world of pediatrics, like cry it out isn't like a thing. It's just that's a marketing sleep industry thing, right? Or is it something that you talk about with your patients?
Yeah, I talk about different approaches to sleep, and I always try to emphasize being ahead versus being behind. So I talk about this at the 2-month well check, this is what your baby's doing now. You're going to have a new kid, 3 to 4 months of age. Let's establish these healthy routines where your baby's falling asleep on their own. Give them 5 minutes to see what they do. You won't know how they're going to do if they can fall asleep if you don't give them 5 minutes. And every week you can give them 10 minutes, 15, you can give them an extra 5 minutes, because at some point between 4 and 6 months, they should be able to fall asleep on their own if you give them that opportunity. Now, is your baby gonna cry after 5 minutes? Maybe, and then you can go in. But again, you're giving them a few minutes. That's not what I would define as crying it out. There are the breaking the sleep cycles that you have created. There can be a method where you let your child go, and that's what you have to decide. Is that right for you? Are you going to just let your child go and wait until they fall asleep on their own? Or are you going to go in? I personally think giving them a few minutes is fine. And if you're consistent about it, they will figure it out. But I don't think you need to wait 2 hours of crying to, and that would be kind of a classic cry it out technique. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. And that doesn't mean that your child is going to be harmed by that. And I think it's important to point that out is the people who are anti-cry it out will say there's data to support that this is harming children. It's not. But it's also not for everybody. And so you have to decide, how much are you willing to give your child the time to figure it out? And that's where the Band-Aid analogy comes in. But it doesn't mean that it would be unhealthy to do that.
Yeah. Do you want to add, like those that attach, what is it? Like that it affects attachment style or like things like that. I feel like that was always interesting.
So the study that people who are very anti-cry it out like to discuss is one on children with neurodevelopmental diagnoses. This is not in neurotypical kids and your average kid. And that's where this attachment question mark came up. The data does not support that this is going to create a problem with attachment with your child. And these are very quick interventions. This is not months long of doing this. This is a quick reset and ways to approach it. Again, different approaches feel right for different parents, but what you choose is not going to be harmful to your child. You have different options. It just depends on how you feel. But I would not be afraid of giving your child an opportunity to figure out how to self-regulate, however that works and you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that I'm very surprised at how intuitive it felt in the line between giving them the few minutes versus like actual distress and going in there and needing to readjust something.
Right.
So, and I know that's probably a scary thing to hear if you're expecting a child, because I very much have a brain where like I love processes and all right, we'll do A and then B and then C. And if C doesn't work, you go this direction. And this is one of those that, I really like both Alex and I were just completely on the same page in terms of how to do it and what we didn't want for our child, which it just didn't feel right for us to have in there crying for very, very long periods of time.
Yeah.
So
you just brought up something I do want to talk about because it relates to kind of planning as you're describing. Okay, so I have my toddler 4-in-1 sleep plan, which is cleverly named Sleep because you're so exhausted it's hard to remember anything else.
Love it.
S is set up a routine. Routine is king, and make it short and sweet. L, less is more. Less intervention means more sleep. E is empower the child. We want the child to know how to self-regulate because self-regulation is a key life skill for sleeping the rest of your life. The other E is early to bed. Don't wait for your child to be overtired. It's harder to fall asleep. It's harder to get into good, deep sleep. So early to bed actually means late to rise. Kids sleep longer when they go to bed earlier. And then P, which is so important, is plan together. I don't know how many parents. One is doing one game plan, one's doing the other. You guys need to be aligned and decide together. And don't decide at 3 a.m. what you're going to do because that's when you're going to do whatever the shortest path is to get back to sleep.
I feel so lucky that we tripped and fell into doing all of those methodologies because they're amazing and they make so much sense. And I'm proud to say that is we took the sleep approach with with Tate. Wow.
Hope it works the second time.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's literally, yeah.
Good job.
I love it. What a great acronym. Okay. Amazing. So, assuming nothing else, I have one last question.
Go for it.
One of the most common things that we go to when Tate is having a bad night's sleep is we say we think she's teething. This is both consensus of Alex, myself, and our neighbors. So, two-part question. What is the best way to deal with teething toddlers and babies through sleep? Or is this a crutch that we've made up that isn't actually happening?
Teething gets blamed on everything,
Yeah,
and
we're
it's
huge
responsible for just about nothing.
I wish Alex heard this.
Should I say it again?
Yes. Oh my goodness. We'll call her in.
Yes. So it's a night or two as the tooth is breaking through. The only exception is the molars. There are 1-year molars that usually come in around 12 to 18 months, and 2-year molars that come in around 2 to sometimes up to age 3. Molars, there's 4 of them. They do hurt, and it takes a while for them to break through. But everything else is like a night or two. So if this is weeks or months, this is not teething. And if it's really a rare night where you have a child who usually is sleeping and there's no other good reason, and if you want to do a dose of ibuprofen for a kid over 6 months of age, I'd probably do a dose of ibuprofen 1. I wouldn't do it every night, and I wouldn't do it for weeks or months. And if your child has a fever or diarrhea or snotty nose, it's probably not teething, and it's definitely not teething if they have a fever, and you should check in with your doctor if you don't know why they're up every night.
Yeah, no, and sorry, I should have clarified. This is like a twice a month type situation, but I do think we reference it quite often, and so that is very helpful.
Every parent thinks it's teething. It's rarely teething.
Okay, very good to know. All right, well, I think that is everything. Except
I do want to say one more thing.
Oh, please.
And that is that Toddler 4-in-1 is coming out next month, and you guys are officially blurbers. So thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for being a blurber. We're excited.
Of course. We are so proud and to support you, and proud that the new edition is coming out. So Toddler 4-in-1 available everywhere that you can buy a book. Amazon is my personal go-to place to buy books. And anything else to note?
That's it. Expecting 4-in-1's coming out in August. But yep, baby and toddler. Toddler you can pre-order now. Baby is out.
Okay, fantastic. Please plug your socials, as Alex would normally say.
You can find me everywhere at Ari Brown, MD.
And thank you so much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Yay.
You did it! Yay!
Thanks for listening to another episode of Two Parents in a Podcast powered by Just Media House. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Stay connected on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Two Parents in a Pod. Welcome to our home. Sorry it's so messy. New episodes Mondays and Thursdays.